Today we're in Psalm 5, and we're going to talk about the King's King. Let's check this out. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Give heed to the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For to you I will pray. My voice you shall hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning I will direct it to you, and I will look up. There is a deep truth to discover in this second verse, where King David, he says something remarkable. He says something that you must understand. You must grow in your knowledge of the Lord, and you must let that knowledge make your heart more inclined to the Lord. It's one thing to understand things about God, but when you let that understanding increase your faith in God, increase your devotion to God, that's something else. And what is this that we must understand? The truth is that King David, the ruler in all of the land, is saying to God that God is his king, my King and my God. And this is one of the deepest, if not the deepest, truth within God's word, that there is a coming king. And David understood this because it was told to him by God. God told David, it's in 2 Samuel chapter 7. I highly encourage you to read that chapter, to make it a chapter that you truly study. But God told David that he would build a house for David, that he would set up a kingdom from David, and that coming from him would be a king who would rule forever, for all of eternity, upon the throne of David, upon Mount Zion in Israel. And so David had this amazing promise given to him, where there is going to be a king coming from his lineage, from his genetic makeup, one of his sons eventually on down the line, that would rule forever. And David understood that the only person that could rule forever would not be merely a man, but the only person who could rule forever would be God. But the throne of David must be sat upon by a man. And then here's where you get into this amazing truth that the only person qualified to reign and rule forever upon David's throne is God and also man. And when you get down into Matthew chapter 1 and you look at the genealogy of Jesus, you see that Jesus Christ is born of Joseph, of Mary, and both of them are in David's genetic lineage. And Jesus Christ is a son of David. He's the only one qualified to be the eternal ruler upon the throne of David. And that's where you get the term Messiah. The Messiah means the anointed son of David. That is who Jesus Christ is. And David understood this truth. He knew that it was God's promise. Within Psalm 5, you got Psalms 3 through 7 that are a block that go together in a specific order. They're really meant to be read together. If I had the time, that'd be great to do a study in all 3 chapters or 4 chapters at once. But these are all really on the back of the situation where Absalom is coming after David's throne. And this promise from God to David appears to be in jeopardy. And from David's perspective, it probably really was in jeopardy, because he is looking at the complete upheaval of his kingdom, of his son coming for his head and his throne. And it's as if everything God had promised him just seems to not matter anymore. But David believed God, and David's faith may have been shaken, but it remained solid. And these Psalms are a reflection of his heart, that he inclined to God in the wake of all of this disorder around him. And so he is saying, my King and my God. And David knows, he trusts, and he believes that this coming king will happen. And he puts himself as the king of Israel, as the most powerful man on all of the earth. There was not another king that could touch David. He puts himself in submission to his king, God himself. And that's what we've got to do. David says, okay, first off, you see the intimacy between David and his king. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Over and over again, we see David saying very similar things to God. And that is this: hear me when I cry. Give ear to my words. Incline your ear to me. Listen to my voice. David knows that God hears. He is the God who hears. When you think that you don't matter to God, when you think that he's so big and he's so far out there, and he just couldn't possibly consider you and your problems today, you're wrong about that. Because there's a man, there was a young man with a slingshot and some rocks. A young man out tending sheep. A young man, the least in his father's house. Everybody else thought David was just nothing. But David knows that God hears him. And God can hear you. But it doesn't come from a command for God to hear you. You don't command and you don't demand. You cry out with a contrite heart. With a heart that bows down on the ground and says, God, I know I don't deserve for you to hear me, but please hear me. And that is when God listens. And we have the same access that David did. And I can tell you, as a man that has been through some crazy stuff, I've had a lot of violence inflicted upon me physically in the Marine Corps, law enforcement, and I've cried out to God. And he has inclined his ear to me and heard my cry. He has answered me from his holy hill. He has delivered me. This is a God who is personal, who loves, who cares about whatever it is that you're going through. And nothing is too big for him. And nothing that you have going on in your life is too small for it not to be important to him. Our God is infinite. He has time for you because he created time. So you might feel like you don't matter very much, but I can tell you that God thinks that you do. And I'm not trying to say that it's all about you. That's definitely not what I'm doing. And I think that we should take the things in our hearts to God that do really matter to us. And he has time, and he wants you to be there in your heart with him. He doesn't want you to say, God doesn't want to deal with that. I've got this on my own. No, you don't live in your own strength before God. You realize that you're just helpless. You're this helpless lamb that doesn't know which way to go. But your shepherd does, and he wants to lead you. David says in verse 3, my voice you shall hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning I will direct it to you, and I will look up. This is a repetitive habit for David to seek the Lord every morning. And David doesn't just do it out of habit. He does it out of loving devotion to God. You know, there's people that talk about it takes 21 days to establish a habit. And, you know, things like that go into effect around New Year's and the resolutions that are made. Maybe someone starts working out for 21 days in a row and they feel that they have a pattern and a habit established in their life and they're not going to quit. That could be helpful to do in your walk with the Lord, to establish a habit and a pattern. And I think it's useful, but outside of just the habitual nature of coming before the Lord every morning and opening his word, seeing what he has to say to you that day, and then speaking back to him and submitting to him, you've got to do it out of devotion to him, out of love for his word, out of fear of the Lord, where you recognize your place before him. And that's exactly what David is doing in this psalm. He recognizes his place before God, because he says, as the most powerful man in all of the land, he says, "My King and my God, for to you I will pray." It doesn't matter how powerful of a man you are. It doesn't matter if you command the attention of thousands of men, an entire nation. It doesn't matter, because Jesus Christ is King. He is your God. He is worthy of everything that you have. He is worthy of your attention every morning. And I encourage you to give it all to him. I'm just going to hit these 3 verses from Psalm 5 this morning, and we'll pick up the rest of the chapter later. Semper Fi, Day of Battle out.